Welcome to Still Plays Galaxyverse. We're back with a talk video. This one is on the road ahead. This says Final Galactic Legend Jabba Requirements, New Territory Battle Concept, Mod and Gear, Quality of Life updates, and there was also a game update that we're going to talk about with Mob Enforcer, Raven's Claw hitting a node, a couple other small changes with the addition of Bosch to the game. We'll wrap up with the free-to-play gearing of our roster. For September's Road Ahead, going to make this a quick one, more of a reaction. Road Aheads deserve a quick turnaround, but that doesn't always match with my schedule, so quick is better than nothing or delayed. The video here is worth watching. There's some good info in there, GL packs and some other items we will touch on as we move through the rest of the road ahead. First up at the top, we have our first look at what the model for Jabba is going to look like. We have Salacious Crumb here, which is a great sign. Happy to see that. Then these requirements here, this is all really good. The final batch here, every one of these had been speculated on to one extent or another. Some like Boba Fett I didn't think we'd see because it's so generous. Relatively speaking, this is a real easy Galactic Legend, especially for longtime players. This is nearly like when JML was released. If you had been playing the game and keeping up with the releases, JML was super easy, and why he was my first GL. Jabba is not too much unlike that. For a quick reference, this is how Jabba lines up with the average relic level at 5.43. That is just slightly more than Sith Eternal Emperor and Jedi Master Luke, and slightly less than Jedi Master Kenobi. Nowhere near as hard as Lord Vader. Bosch at Relic 5 is standard for any new marquee, which I like. Almost certainly there will be incentive to take these new marquee characters higher, but what R5 means is there will be variance in the matchups in strategy and resource management. Forced high relics is limiting for the game, I find. Aura Singh was a near guarantee, the only remaining long-standing bounty hunter in the game, required for nothing at this point. Fennec is an excellent character and is a Lord Vader counter, at least depending on the datacrons these days. Beyond that, she can solo several teams, especially in a 3v3 context, and you're going to want her at R7 minimum anyway. Boba Fett, you already need an R8 for the Executor, so almost all of us have him. The R7 is for newer players and future accounts. For the rest of us, a gift. Mob Enforcer was almost certainly going to be a requirement, so there's no surprise here. The bigger surprise is that we got an update so quick, which we'll hit on later in the video. And I love that we don't need an Omicron for her, because it means all of us get to enjoy the changes right away. Even if we're just testing these new characters out at Gear 8 in 3 stars, there are things we can learn. I'm ecstatic to see these requirements. It means for me personally that I'm likely to be going for the Jabba GL as soon as I can farm the new marquees. I had already been in the middle of prepping for my next GL, who was going to be Sith Eternal Emperor, and now I can shift. And this is why I recommend hoarding, because you never know CG's timeline for releases. The Horde lets you pivot. All those resources I've put in place for Sith Eternal Emperor, those can just shift over towards GL Jabba, and it's not really going to affect my release on either of those characters. Now, I won't make final decisions on that until I see in-game testing, but newer characters and kits tend to outweigh older ones, so I think I'm safe here. What is more likely is I'll get my third then fourth GLs in relatively quick succession, as I'm already prepping for it. Next up, we have the new Territory Battle, Rise of the Empire. This is excellent news. We were due for something big in-game. This looks like a nice refresh that will allow for CG to upgrade more consistently and prevent game modes from expiring and getting stale, which has historically been a problem for the game. This is a good sign for SWGOH's long-term health. In the video, they do mention Third Sister is the first release. This is great news for most of you. and less good news for anyone who already has Grand Inquisitor or is about to get Grand Inquisitor like me, because it likely means the unlock of Riva and thus the probable Grand Arena boost of the squad is far off enough that any of you not already working on Grand Inquisitor will be able to unlock him on his third or fourth cycle through, which will probably still happen before the Riva unlocks occur. So unfortunately, no moat for the rest of us, which I actually really don't like. What this also means, any late game players not finished with Kiadi Mundi shards needs to make that a priority. This will probably function like Geo and Hoth territory battles, where guilds are forced to choose between them, and that means cam shards are about to get a whole lot rare. Hoth character shards are some of the most annoying farms left in the game for new accounts. That's just going to be moving upwards. Now the territory battle update is still a little far off. You can even see here in the artwork they say concept art not final, and it looks not fully rendered. What is probably a little closer, the next title update, they say it's going to be the next couple weeks. That's probably by the end of September. Mods, calibration, and quality of life. I have some mixed feelings on this. It could be great or it could be bad. The devil is really in the details on this one, so I'm going to need to see it active. For players who are careful with their mods, like I am, this is one of our advantages. Players who have been less careful and strategic with their mod resources can now dig themselves a little bit out of their hole. That has the potential to shrink an advantage for us obsessive players who think through how we use every single thing CG gives us. Obviously, it'll help me too. I have a ton of gold mods that just never hit that 5th speed on that will now jump in quality. But that's the other issue. How and where do we get these micro attenuators to transfer slices? If it's in Galactic Legends, I'm fine with it. That'll be great. If they can be bought, or if they're related to the new territory battle, that means whales get an advantage, and that's something I'm not fine with. But the video does suggest CG is sensitive to these things, so hopefully CG continues their pretty good stewardship of mods. And what it likely means from me is that the long asked for mod videos will be on their way. I have some ideas of how I want to approach them, but I've largely stayed away from them because other channels cover them so well that I wouldn't be adding much to the conversation. However, I do have a few ideas, and I do want to eventually cover everything in the game. So this is a good timing and opportunity for me to do so. And in addition to the mod calibration, we get some further gear economy changes. Pretty good stuff here. I won't go into the details, but mods are going to get easier and have a little less maintenance. Thing I'm most happy about is the better drop rate on the triangles. But mod slicing will also be getting easier with being able to farm more of the upgrade materials. But this is the type of thing that sounds good, but in a resource management game, it's the type of change that erodes the advantages that the best resource managers can have, which is also the best way for free-to-play players to compete against more wasteful whales. Whales can get beefier, and the consequences of not being strategic are about to get less meaningful. The in-game update has added the Jabba Requirements BOSH to the game. The Raven's Claw is now farmable, and Karth has moved over to Cantina. I know there are some players who don't like the Cantina farms, especially some of the early players, but if you do the refreshes, they are way faster. This is a good thing. The really important thing here, though, is the Mob Enforcer update. Basic, dirty fighting, physical damage to target, inflict defense down if ally leader is cartel and the target already had that defense down, inflict, daze, expose, vulnerable. These are great debuffs. Not game changing, but no one is going to dismiss daze and expose by themselves. Together, that's great. The first special thermal physical damage to target and AoE detonate thermals, then inflict a thermal on the target, 40% chance of a bonus turn. That turns into a guaranteed bonus turn if it defeats an enemy. This ability I like less. Gives some flexibility, but with Bosch and the compounding effects of having both Deadly Bluff and Thermal means you need to pick and choose your spots. But it might mean you have now 2 AoE detonates, so you have some opportunities to look at the turn meter and decide when you want to do it. The unique Underworld Moxie at the start, gain 25 max health for each Scoundrel ally, 25 max protection for each Bounty Hunter ally, 10 speed for each Hut Cartel ally, and most of these characters are going to have all those tags. Whenever an ally falls below 30% health, Mob Enforcer gains offense up and the cooldown of Thermal Detonator is reduced. This is a great unique. Moves Mob Enforcer into the present stage of the game. I speculated that this could happen in the Bosch talk video that I did yesterday, but didn't expect to see it so soon. She'll at least have some fun uses, if not actual uses. Thermals have always been a fun mechanic, and she was a predictable Jabba requirement. So nice that she won't remain useless. Still waiting on my Gam Guard changes though. CG. And now to finish with our typical wrap-up, the free-to-play gearing of my roster. This is the gearing I performed on August 29th. With this, Melgus was the big thing, taking him to Relics, but you can see the progress I made on some of these characters. You can see where the Profundity is, the Grand Inquisitor, Sith Eternal Emperor. It's before the changes. This is also before the final Jabba requirements, but you can see where Jabba stands at this point. And I want to take Skiff Lando here up to gear 11. He's a very easy to gear character. I just started doing a viable series where I look at the gearing requirements. We'll be doing that for Bosch Leia as well pretty soon, but I think I'm going to do it as I'm going to try to do it as a YouTube short. Because YouTube either likes the shorts or they want a video that is 8 minutes, otherwise I don't show it to you guys. So we will work within the system. We're trying to grow this channel here. But there's 150 Kairos, there's a few stun cuffs, but a number of these pieces aren't a huge deal for Lando. So we took him up. Hera, taking her just to gear 12. Get a little closer. And it helps the ship a little bit. I think I also took, yes, Bistan. Finally throw that relic on Bistan. Glad that the Profundity has given me the reason to do so. He's a character I've wanted to do for years, possibly years. I've always wanted this relic, but it was always one of those relics that you put off. And now I don't have to anymore. You can see we got some weaker mods. I'm not going to slice mods like that. I will let them filter down. Like eventually he's going to need some better ones. But I'm not slicing bad mods just to get 6-dot mods on a character. Melgus here, we're taking him up to relics. We've been able to capture a good amount of footage at gear 11, at gear 12, see how he works on offense and defense. We took our time with it, but it's because not every player is going to be able to go to relics right away, and other channels are taking him right to relics, and you don't really see enough footage of how he performs at those intermediate levels. And so in this case, I stop at relic 4 as well. Even though I technically could have gone higher, but it's also because I need to be careful on the signal data right now, as I am working towards multiple projects with Grand Inquisitor and the Profundity. Don't know exactly when they're going to come back, and I don't want to deplete my farms at an inopportune time. Looks like I'm wasting a little bit of time here with the mods. But that is where we will wrap up this session of the gearing. So this was a great road ahead. Unfortunately, the road ahead came out nearly the same moment as my Bosch Leia talk video, so a lot of people didn't have too much interest in it at the time because the road ahead is obviously more pressing. So check that out if you haven't. Be safe out there, everyone. Be excellent to each other. This is still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.